Buenos días. Muy buenos días. Good morning. Welcome to our 7th annual Ethnic, Gender, Transborder Studies, and Sociology Summit. Woo! Our theme for today is community making. We often hear of these big organizations, right? But we don't often hear of the people that are actually doing the work. The people, the individuals that are doing the work in the field, doing the day-to-day operations of the organization, facing challenges, and sometimes facing risk. Today, we have community members, student scholars, faculty who will present to you the making that they have been doing in our communities. Before we get started, I would like for you to close your eyes for a few seconds. Imagine you are surrounded by a field of beautiful colored flowers. The sun is warming your face. You can hear the birds singing, and your bare feet are connected to our land. Feel how peaceful you feel, and feel how present you are. Take another deep breath and open your eyes slowly. I want you to feel like this while we're in our community space. I want you to feel welcomed, relaxed, and comfortable. Each one of you, every single one of you, belong to here. Let's share ideas together. Let's hear your voices, and let's build community together. Thank you and welcome. And now let's get this party started. I would like to introduce you to Dr. Sherry Stewart.
That's it. Good morning, everyone. Isn't it a beautiful day in Tucson, Arizona? Oh my gosh. I will be delivering the land acknowledgement statement. I'm going to try to stop turning my head. I'm really good at that. I'm going to be delivering the land acknowledgement statement this morning. Typically, Indigenous gatherings have a ceremony that will follow. Indigenous peoples begin by inviting folks in. And that's what Elizabeth did this morning. She invited you in. At this moment, Pima College does not have an official land acknowledgement statement, so I've put together some pieces from an old one and also some thoughts of my own to begin this morning. We have 22 native tribes and nations in the state of Arizona, and we have 2 that are our particular neighbors, the O'odham and the Pasquayaqui. The O'odham have lived on these lands and stewarded these lands since time immemorial. These are their original homelands. They have been affected by colonization both in the past and in the present. And we understand that the land that Pima College stands on is indigenous lands. Our other neighbors are the Pasquayaqui of Arizona, and they live on their present day homelands. And I make that distinction because many indigenous peoples have lost their homelands and had to move. But we invite all indigenous peoples who have put their feet in these lands to join us, and that we will be respectful, and that we will perform reciprocity, and that we invite you in, and we hope that that is reciprocal from you. Thank you very much. That's the land acknowledgement statement for today. And now I would like to introduce you to Augustine Lopez Jr. He will be doing our opening ceremony. He is a member of the Pasquayaqui of Arizona, and I'll be telling you a little bit more about him a little bit later. Augustine?
Good morning, everyone. If I can ask everyone to stand up, and we'll try to create a circle. I would like to say good morning to all of you. Thank you for coming, especially for this important day and especially the topics we will speak about. I would like everyone to just close their eyes, and in a loud voice, I want you to say, to all my relations, to all my relations. At this time, I would like you, in silence, say a prayer request for you, for your family, for your community, and for this nation. I believe that this nation, the past few years, has lost the sense of humanity, community, and today I am happy because I can ask the Creator to bring this connection that we have all together here to spread our knowledge, to talk of issues that are very important to us. I believe that unity is the connection to everything, every living being in this earth. And I want the Creator to guide you, to show you your purpose. The past 2 years, the pandemic has really isolated us and created us to be disconnected from everyone outside. But one good thing it did do is that it brought us back to our families. It brought us back to who we really are, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, and that we all have that sense of family. Now that the pandemic is over, I believe that with this isolation, with this that we went through, It is time for us to come out into our communities. And I ask Creator to help us all to create, this knowledge that we have inside, to let it out, to teach people. And society has divided us big time. And I believe that our Creator can guide us to bring that back to all of us. And we need it back. So today, during this conference, introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Learn about them. Learn about who they are and what their purpose is, because this builds collaboration within each other and with everyone. And that's what we need today. We need to bring back that simple thing of being there for each other, to love our neighbor, to love ourselves, to love everyone around us, and to love this world, this land, this earth. And that's what I believe that our Creator brought to us with the pandemic, is that we needed to slow down. But now it's time for us to pick it back up and to go out there and to teach this to all our children. I thank you, God, for this wonderful day and this wonderful people. I bless everyone here, and I thank everyone here that wants to gain knowledge and strength and build these collaborations together. And I guide them, and I teach them. They teach me, and Creator, you teach them. And we need to spread this knowledge to everyone. Thank you, Creator, for everything you have given me. It is now for me to give back to all of you. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to introduce you to Dr. Dolores Duran Cerda. She will be our MC for today. She's the Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor at Pima Community College.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Good morning. Buenos días. Es un placer de estar aquí con todos ustedes. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. What a beautiful opening ceremony, wasn't that? For us to reconnect, reflect on the beauty of humanity, of collaboration, of love. And I feel that here with all of you today. Thank you for joining us today. So as Elizabeth said, this morning I am honored to be your MC for the event. Welcome to Pima Community College's downtown campus and to the 7th Annual Ethnic Gender Transborder Studies and Sociology Summit. Yay! It's the 7th one, and this is the first one in person after a couple of years due to the pandemic. So we're delighted that you are here. I also wanted to thank Dr. Stewart for providing the land acknowledgement, and to Agustin for the wonderful opening ceremony that set the tone for today. So this event was organized by the Ethnic Gender and Transborder Studies Department and their work group, their planning group. We are so incredibly grateful for the support of the following at Pima Community College: the staff of the Office of the Provost, Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, also our student ambassadors for the Immigrant and Refugee Student Resource Center, for helping put this together today for all of us. Also, we thank the interpreters who are in the back, and the staff members in these and many other offices across the college. It took a family to put this together, so let's give them a round of applause. Also, we are grateful for today's guest speakers, panelists, and performers. Felicia Montes, where's Felicia? There you are, yes. She is our keynote speaker, and I'd also like to thank all of the panelists who will be joining later, and we'll introduce them in a moment. and also today's performers, including A Todo Folklore and Neftis. We also appreciate all of you joining us in this summit. We are joined today by some additional special guests, and I would like to acknowledge them at this moment. We have Teresa Real, who's our governing board chair, representing District 2. Mark Hanna, is Mark Hanna here? There he is, as he walks in the perfect timing. Former Pima Community College board member, thank you for being here. We also have Victor Mercado. Where's Victor? Is he here yet? Maybe he'll be joining us in a little bit. And he's the communications advisor to Mayor Romero. Eric Garcia. Are you here, Eric? He is the community advisor to Mayor Romero. Also, we have Dr. Rosalia Solórzano. No, she's not here? Oh, okay. Well, she's here in spirit. Yes, yes. PCC faculty emeritus. And I just want to say on a personal note, so I don't know if you knew this, but before becoming provost, I was a faculty member here at the downtown campus in the World Languages Department, and also worked with Francisca and Rosalia in Mexican American Studies and taught a couple of classes as well. So I've seen the Ethnic Transborder Gender Studies department grow, and also this event. So I'm honored to have been a part of that too. And also from the University of Arizona, Dr. Ana O'Leary. Is Dr. Ana O'Leary here? I know she's coming. Yeah, she's coming a little bit later. So she's professor and department head at the University of Arizona, Mexican American Studies. We have Maria Federico Brumer, director of Mexican American Student Services Department at TUSD, and I believe she will be coming with students a little bit later. So they'll be joining us later this morning. And now I'd like to introduce our special guest and keynote speaker, Felicia Montes. Felicia, or Fe Montes. Oh, we see also Ms. Sierra Vista in the audience. Where's, yes. Thank you for joining us too. Excellent. So Felicia Fe Montes is a Xicana Indigenous holistic artivist, femcee, designer, poet, professor, and practitioner of the healing arts from East Los Angeles. She is the co-founder and coordinator of Mujeres de Maiz, in Lak Ech, Botanica del Barrio, and el MERCADO y más. Having organized, performed at, and presented at hundreds of campuses and community spaces, Felicia is known throughout the Southwest as an established Xicana cultural worker of a new generation. With that, let's please welcome Felicia Montes.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos días. ¿Qué tal? Great to be here, and thank you so much for the land acknowledgement and the prayer and honoring of our indigenous communities and of each other and of our ancestors, where we come from, those ancestors and loved ones and families from down the street or down across the street and across the countries and across the world. I'm really honored to be here today. It's been a while, and it's good to see good friends and old friends from organizing and creative spaces from before. And so I'm excited to share today and to share a little bit about our community work and creating community across not only Los Angeles, but the Southwest, and how some of the different work that I have done, but also my organizing and creative spaces have done throughout. So today's presentation is La Cultura Cura, creating community and consciousness through the arts. So again, as always, as Mujeres de Maiz and myself do, we like to do, as you've already done, a land acknowledgement. I am Xicana Indigenous. My family is from Chihuahua, Mexico. via Matamoros, Chihuahua, Mexico, and the Raramuri communities, are also known AKA as the Tarahumara. Que viva, que viva. I do represent that well, although I'm from California and been there since I was 2 years old. I was born in El Paso, Texas, so I say I'm a Cali Tejana. And I wanted to honor some of where I come from, and where a lot of the work I'll be sharing from is from Tongva territory. And so this is one of the Xicana and Tongva grandmothers that we work with that you might know from the Xicana movement. She was a Brown Beret, founded the clinic, health clinic for the Brown Berets, and created community in the 60s and 70s, and still creates community now through her indigenous community as a representative and a grandma of the Tongva Nation, which is Grandma Gloria Reanes. So I wanted to honor kind of that bridge between our communities and spaces, and of course honor the Tonaotam Nation and the Pasque Yaqui tribe, which you have honored here and created in that space for us. So thank you so much. I wanted to share a little bit about mi familia. Who am I and who's this in front of you, right? My name is Felicia Montes Velasquez, and I do, in presentations in key spaces such as ceremonies, also share my mom's maiden name, which as a second and third generation Xicana, that name has taken off my birth certificate, right? Kind of the Mexicanness begins with cutting off of the names. And so I have this image and somewhat of a family tree of mi familia, my family. I was born to two Chicano movement veteranas and veteranos, meaning my parents are Carlos and Olivia Montes. Carlos Montes, former Minister of Information for the Brown Berets, and was a part of the walkouts, of the security for the walkouts as the Brown Berets, and my mom, a member of La Vida Nueva. Hola, buenos días. And so these images here of my dad with the Brown Berets, an image that was most likely taken by the Los Angeles Police Department and surveillance of COINTELPRO, as well as myself at a march. What cut off, I think, are the fists. I'm not really sure what to do with my fist yet, but I'm like 3 years old at a march. And so how I grew up, my parents, when they were married in East LA in the backyard of Lanfranco Street in Boyle Heights, East LA, before they had to go underground. Why did they have to go underground for the Chicano movement? Because they wanted education. They wanted a relevant education. They wanted ethnic studies courses. They wanted to see themselves in the curriculum, relevant curriculum. They wanted books that were new. They wanted teachers just like you all that reflected who they were, that didn't hit them for speaking Spanish, right? And so I get kind of chills and emotional when I say that, because now as a Chicano Latinx Studies professor, an educator and lecturer, presenter and keynote and artist, I am continuing that lineage of the Chicano movement. And so this picture when they were married in their traditional regalia and huipiles or guayaberas is really, really important. This was actually right before they had to leave to Mexico, again, because of the movement and education, because their interest in education and their fight for their community. It's important for me to share that and to share where I'm coming from so that there's a lineage and an understanding of what I do and how I do it and where we come from in this way. Let's speak a little bit of a positionality. I think you've seen this image a lot. I was hoping to possibly wear the dress, but the I'm Xicana Indigenous, and my positionality and who I am is important to what I'm going to share. I'm a woman, cis woman. I go by she, her, and ella, working class, right? Second and third generation Xicana, which means some of my grandparents were born in Arizona, Miami, Arizona, and were miners, right, in the mining industry. Where my paternal grandparents were born both in Chihuahua and were migrants. So both my parents were actually born in the United States, and it's a different connection for many of us who are migrants or immigrants, right? The different generation, you begin to assimilate or learn more, the language changes, there's a lot of different changes around that. And so it's key for me to share that, to understand who I am and what I'm doing and how I'm beginning to reconnect, or have worked with my whole life to reconnect to the connection of cultura and politics. Femme, born in El Paso, which I mentioned, and East Los Angeles raised, but also it's important to kind of put the letters behind me, right? Especially in academic spaces, which is important because I took a 6-year plan at 5 different colleges, including various community colleges, 1 Cal State and 1 UC, and 1 study abroad to be able to get my BA. So I'm very much a non-traditional student who was always an interdisciplinary, looking to find what would really suit who I am and what I do. And I'm still doing that, right? As a lecturer and professor, but also a femcee, right? I have a lot of different spaces. And when we're talking about community making, it's how you can create spaces in all the different locations that you are. So as an artist, as an academic, an activist, a dancer, which I'm both in spiritual and social dance. I love banda and norteño music. So like in the Southwest, it's important to me to see these spaces. I'm also, again, a poet and femcee, drummer and singer, a community organizer, circle keeper, and culture bearer. And I put paisana, because it's important to me to recognize the paisa roots within my community and the Tejana roots, as well as a wellness practitioner. And a lot of people have mentioned or have said, wow, that's like hard to say when you're trying to do a bio, right? You say all that and. But I think a lot of it, I've read somewhere where Indigenous women and women of color and communities in general in this day and age, and also traditionally, we had to do all of these things. Of course, we didn't have the doctors or HMO or PPOs to go to the clinic to take care of ourselves. We had to know how to do wellness or learn about the herbs and the plants, right? We had to take care of ourselves. We had to, part of our culture and worldview were to honor and to wake up in the morning and sing that song or share that prayer as Agustin did, right? And so, yes, we are culture bearers. We are paisanas. We are activists because our communities were under attack, were and are. And so all of these roles, many of us hold, and maybe we don't list them here on a presentation, but it is part of who we have to be to take care of ourselves and our families and to create community. Now, today's presentation, more than anything, is about community making, creating community specifically in consciousness through the arts. And so the images and spaces that you'll see are about how I've done that. And I wanted to share a little bit with not only sharing some of the predecessors of my Xicana Indigenous, which are my family, Carlos and Olivia Montes, right, and how they created space, and not only created space, but had to demand space, push space, take the mic, take the stand, and move towards this creation of space. But also, as an academic and as a person who loves to learn and continual and lifelong learner, it's about, for me, some of my academic foremothers and predecessors. There's a long list here, but really for myself, the ethnic and Chicano studies was key. I learned it from my parents, right, going to marches and protests and fundraisers, cultural events since I was very young, as you've seen in some of the images. But it was also about, I didn't know the history until I took the courses or came to the conferences. I didn't have the language. I understood in my stomach and heart that something was wrong and I wasn't treated the same and that things were different, and how could I change it, right? And so creating space with other community members, specifically in classrooms, was really really important to me. And so ethnic studies and Chicano studies, predecessors, some of the authors that are listed here, was really, really important to me. But also learning and reconnecting spiritually, not only through practice and through elders, both Chicana and Indigenous elders from across the Southwest, and the space that they gave and said, come here, let us teach you, come, share, join our circle, join our table, join our conference, join this circle or space. But also performance spaces and others, but I also want to recognize that some of the foremothers are Black, brown, and also queer Indigenous community members, right? Feminists such as Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Gloria Anzaldúa, Shuri Moraga, and many more who are images on the right. Also very key to my work is that the social praxis, and part of my work is in social practice or public practice work, which is basically community engaged art. It's a new term in the last 10 to 15 years that's being used, but really social practice and public practice work is about art and engagement and activism. I've pushed the terms to speak about Xicana Indigenous social praxis, right? Whereas action, academic and theory put into action. And so what you'll see are some kind of case studies or examples in a few slides of how we've created community. And one of the key things for us is to understand and connect with all our relations. That you all shared that earlier, right, in the beginning of the opening and land acknowledgement and prayer by Augustine, mentioned all my relations, right? And so this first one is the protocol, the 7 R's of plant medicine, which is something that Dr. Patricia, well, it comes from the plant medicine and comes from herbs, but Dr. Patricia Gonzalez of U of A mentions about the 7 R's of plant medicine, which are responsibility, respect, reciprocity, relationships, regeneration, redistribution, and resilience. So when working with community, I think of the 7 R's, right? These are the things that I want to go into with the community, connect with the community, somebody you already know, or if you're already working with your space and circles and wanting to create a new space, the 7 R's are really, really key. Also, I want to acknowledge number 4, which is rascuachismo, which is, right, doing it because we just got to do it. We might not have the tools, we might not have the tech, we might not know how to do it, but it's urgent oftentimes and important. And in 1997, when I started and helped too, along with some of the other sisters in my group and women in my group, in Lak Ech and Mujeres de Maiz, we didn't know what we were doing, but we said, we didn't know how to make a documentary, but we made one. We didn't know how to make a zine, but we figured it out. We didn't know the application of Adobe Illustrator or whatever it was at that point, but we had somebody to, can you teach us a few things, right? And so rascuachismo, which is basically doing what you can with what you have, right? Doing it because it needs to be done. Oftentimes seen from like the underdog, we just have to do it. And so that's something that I think is really, really key about community making, and for at least our work, is that we do it because we have to. Because if not, our communities won't be seen or heard, and it's giving space for ourselves to be seen and for ourselves to share. Number 5, also it talks about las otras. This is en nosotras from Gloria Anzaldúa, is talking about queerness and many different ways, and being queer not only in sexuality, but also just differentness, right? And I grew up like that, just always being very, very different. But also, when I say la otra campaña, the other campaign, which is the translation, I think of the Zapatistas, the indigenous communities who rose up in 1994 in Chiapas, Mexico, the southern Mexico, who said, ya basta, this is enough, that we need to be seen, heard, and also honored. And when we talk about la otra campaña, the other campaign, it was about giving a world or making a world where everybody fits. And so that's really, really important for creating and community space overall. I want to honor some of our artistic community predecessors, and there's so many to honor, right? And you could take a 15-week or a whole dissertation about some of the different masters, like 5 master's theses and much more, about who are our predecessors within our community. But within our predecessors of my own work and the Xicana feminist work, indigenous work of Mujeres de Maiz, which means women of the corn, and I'll share a little bit more about that, are the Mujeres Muralistas, which translates to the women muralists from San Francisco. You know, really groundbreaking muralist at the time when it was a male-dominated space. Las Flores de Aztlán, the Flowers of Aztlán, which is a Xicana indigenous dance and movement group who were based in Los Angeles but traveled across and did dance and movement. And they all are actually Xicana indigenous ceremonial or cultural bearers right now in Los Angeles. It's very interesting, similar to in Lak Ech and Mujeres de Maiz. They were of the 70s doing that. And so now they are our curators, they are our professors, they are Aztec dance capitanas, they are our sweat leaders, they are the women who are moving forward and creating in community spaces. And the Border Arts Workshop on the right, which is from San Diego. So we have San Francisco, we have mainly, obviously, California-based, just because that's really my focus in a lot of my work. But the Border Arts Workshop is doing things however they needed to do, talking about border issues literally on the border, which this image is literally on the border where they did performance art a la brava, again, rascuache, just doing it because they had to do it and however they could. So these are some of our artistic community predecessors. I was able to see some of them at Chicano Park on Sunday at the last Saturday at the 53rd anniversary, and they're still moving strong now, having a Chicano Park museum and really honoring their space after 53 years. And so the community building is about connecting consciousness, community, collectivity, and la cultura cura. How many of you know what la cultura cura means? Raise your hand. It means culture cures. Culture cures. The culture cures. And so whether it's visual art, poetry, performance, theater, dance, film, whatever it is in terms of the arts, this is how I build community best in my own way and with our community. And we see art as a way to educate, empower, and transform. You can educate about a specific political issue or about your history and her story and our story, about traditions, teachings, laws. And you can also empower when you can connect with that. Many communities, as you see, either as a student, you felt empowered in certain classes, or as an educator, you've seen that and you've also felt that praxis happen. And it really transforms. It allows us to grow, to heal, to transform in our community in many ways, and then oftentimes become leaders. So I wanted to share some actual methodology in terms of creating space. As a professor, also, I'm interested in like how people can share and learn ways to do it, not just how I do it, but how others. This is actually an image and an acronym, CRAFT, or CRAFT, from The Beginner's Guide to Community-Based Art by Keith Knight and Matt Schwartzman. And it mainly is images, but also writing about how to work with community or how to build community. And it's based in different indigenous, Black and BIPOC, Black, indigenous, people of color organizations and examples from across the United States, the book. It's an older book, but I still love it in terms of the images and how it talks about you can contact, if you're not already from the community, which many of us are like participant observers. We are the community already, but if not, right, connecting or contacting maybe key people, key leaders, or key movers and shakers within the community, whether that be youth or elders. Research, right, learning about it, asset mapping, connecting, what's really happening in the community, what are the issues. And oftentimes as academics or people who are deciding to learn about a community, they just need to be you just need to find that person who knows, right, and they'll tell you what's going on, all the issues, all the things, and even the chisme, right, of what's going on. So contact, research, and then action. The action can be the art. This is an art piece right here. Look at you all. Beautiful paintings, every single one of you, a beautiful painting, right? A beautiful reflection of your ancestors, of your family, of your community. And so the action can be anything from a mobile mural or a piece or performance piece or a theater piece or a song, right? Anything that it might be. It might just be a plática or a panel or a conference. And then feedback, right? You're always probably going to do a survey or how'd it go, and teaching, sharing about how you did it. So craft is really key for me when I do some of the works. I didn't learn craft 25 years ago, but we were doing craft, right? But now we can see it later as a way to talk about how we work with community. Oops. I also put together and kind of coined this one, which is iPadded. And I know some of us know what iPads are, right? But it has nothing to do with iPads. iPadded is a method to build with community for specific projects. So usually you're thinking like, what's the issue? So it might be immigration rights or school, Mexican American studies. It might be a specific environmental issue that's happening down the street, a pothole even, right? Anything from street to worldview about what's happening in terms of environmental racism or something. What are the issue in the street, in the community? And then you look to iPadded as I for issue, P for population and or organization, A for arts or creation, because I'm always pushing how you can create an artistic, and it's not always a painting or a 2D, but like how you can, again, create a conference, or what is the action, or arts or creation. So this can also be the action. D, documenting it, right? There's somebody recording this, there's photos being taken, there's video, so that anybody who wasn't here, you can still make it accessible to somebody else, and it lives forever, especially if it was ephemeral and just like a one-day performance or 1-minute performance. If you take pictures and video, you'll see it for many years to come. Evaluation and feedback, as you saw in craft also, and then dialogue and share out. So they're pretty similar, craft and iPadded, but it goes a little bit deeper into how you can work with community for specific projects. And so I want to share with you some examples of how I've worked with craft and iPadded. Again, although the iPad and craft came from looking at it after, because we were just doing it. We were doing it Rascuache style, again, just because we had to, because we felt it in our hearts, because our community was under attack, or because we needed a space. And so in Lak Ech is a Xicana spoken word, drumming, and poetry group. We just started as a few people in college, a few women, 2 to 3 women in college, opening up our book and saying, well, are you a writer? No, I'm not a writer. Are you an artist? No, 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 no. Oh, but I have all these books of all these writings, and I write every day, and I'm in creative writing classes at school, but I'm not a writer, right? Or I'm not an artist, but I have 5 black books of all these images, and I draw every single day. And in class, I can listen, and I'm learning, and I know everything that the teacher's saying, but I'm drawing. And they oftentimes think that I'm not, but I'm really drawing what they're saying and talking about it, right? And so in Lak Ech, the issue, and you're going to see iPadded in every single one of these examples, the issue for us was belonging in a safe space, but not only a safe space, a brave space that like was about our community, that had other brown women and queer women and women who were young and maybe punk rock or really into hip hop and really couldn't figure out our space within our schools or even within college, right? And so it was about women's representation, about belonging and safe space. That was the issue. And the population was queer, trans, women of color. We've decided mainly, we didn't say, we're going to start a poetry group. We want a poetry group, although amazing if people can do that. But we just began to share our poetry. And when I shared it with Maria, like her heart opened up, and so did mine. And I started healing, and we realized the potential of what was happening. And we said, let's keep doing it. And let's call my friend. And at that time, it was like pagers and other things. We were like, let's text other people, or let's invite other people. And it grew, and it grew. So in Lak Ech, eventually, we have her story in a CD, because 10 years after organizing and creating, we decided we needed to document ourselves. We needed to put it down so that it wasn't just the people who could come to this conference or this event, but that eventually they could hear us through the airwaves of Atlan or through the airways of Anahuac or through a CD at that time. How many of you know what CDs are? Just kidding. I love saying to them, my students, they know it's a joke, but it's not always a joke. And now it's on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube, and so you could just stream these songs, right? And so my young goddaughter, the Osa daughter, who grew up in the performing with us and learning about Mexica understandings of spirituality and philosophy through our songs, where I learned about Goyoshauki or an Aztec moon goddess, or through the books when I took a Chicana feminist course at UCLA, right? She learns about it through our music, and she sings about it. And so this is some of the women of Lak Ech and our hand drums. We work, Dr. Chela Sandoval at UC Santa Barbara talks about SWAPA, spoken word art performance activism and oppositional consciousness, and has said when she sees our work, she's like, yes, you are continuing what we're doing, what I'm talking about in terms of this. This is our Xicana Codex. It's the insert of our CD, if you remember, right, like the sleeves that would happen. And it was all our poetry, and some of the women were artists and muralists, and so you began to see our poetry, and it was a spirit and healing focus for femmes and families. And so that was our community building. We began to share, and now that community building, because people were connecting, we would come to Tucson and share our songs, right? And people would maybe know our songs because of the CD. And now we go across, actually north, south, and even South America, because of the Peace and Dignity journeys. These songs have literally been shared across the world and across the continents. The next community practice project is Mujeres de Maiz. These are some of the women in our 2020 event. This was literally like the 5 days before kind of the closing, right, the pandemic. It was March 16th, 2020. And our group was, again, more about creating space and community. How did we do it this time? We were creating live art shows, exhibitions, zines, and circles, and spaces like this, women's conferences or creative spaces, and eventually created community on social media and other spaces. And I wanted to show this image because it was important for us to learn from the Zapatistas in 1997, and it was a key event for us where we learned about our community and our spaces and how to educate, empower, and transform. So these are images of our zines, of our live art shows, which are festivals and performances where we create space, where we empower above Siwatonali, below Filipina women from the Balagtasan collective who would share poetry in Tagalog and English. And so even though it was Xicana and Indigenous and Central American and Latinx-centric, because we are in Los Angeles, which is the largest population of Mexicans outside of Mexico City, it was also Sri Lankan, African American, and different communities like the Filipinas. We're always transforming our communities and connecting in different ways. We really believe that the path of Mujeres de Maiz artists connects us with Gloria Anzaldua's statement, "I changed myself, I changed the world." And I know others have said something very similar, and others, but really connecting how we can create a live art show or an exhibition. Here are UCLA student interns that we get once or twice a year, learning how to create an exhibit. Again, intergenerational work. Performances of trans communities, Bambi Salcedo of Trans Latina Coalition, and Dilo, Sri Lankan trans man, who transitioned during the time we first met our community members 25 years ago to now, right? But always being open, even though it's Mujeres de Maiz, we've always had this open policy and connected policy to all our queer, trans, and non-binary communities, even if 25 years ago, we didn't necessarily have that terminology. So there's been workshops, live art shows from young people, and community spaces. Our publications, which are in the library, are connected to the Library of Congress, or have the number of ISBN. And we're actually about to come out with a book, which I'll share next year on the University of Arizona Press. We can say that now we've put our contract out, or signed the contract, and have different holistic programs, because we were doing so much work, but we also realized, whew, we were tired. And all that urgency and all that work in the community, we felt like we couldn't stop, right? When are we gonna take a break? When are we gonna take care of ourselves? When are we gonna rest? And we remembered that we need to take care of ourselves. And so we began to learn from our elders, like Flores de Aztlan, about ways to do that, but also sought out people who could teach us and share workshops. So for many years, we've had various holistic programs. And one of the key things is that we love to come to conferences and summits and circles like this inside classrooms, or inside universities, or inside the black box of a theater, or inside the white box of an exhibition and gallery space and museum. But we love to go to the streets. And it's a really key important work for us is to go to the streets. So here's a poetry procession that we did where I'm sharing and building community in a nail salon, right? Sharing poetry, Xicana feminist poetry in a nail salon. We also went to the AutoZone, the barbershop, and everywhere along Cesar Chavez Avenue, about 2 to 3 miles. It ended at Mariachi Plaza in Boyle Heights, where here Shuri Moraga is sharing at the end of our poetry procession, right? So bringing poetry to the people, and talking about community, but really bringing it literally to the community and to the spaces. Our talking circles for the last, since 2010, have been every month on the full moon, and we also have it on the street, which is a little bit different for what is traditionally known to where talking circles should be, right, because of the confidentiality. But we literally have it on a corner in East LA. On the one corner is a library, on one corner is a sheriff's substation, and on the other corner is a liquor store and a laundromat, right? And then there's the actual Coyolxauhqui, or what is oftentimes known as the Aztec moon goddess, and we can talk a lot more about that in a whole 15-week course if you want to learn about that. But what was usually known as the Mexica or Aztec moon goddess, we are around in these spaces, and that on the corner is where we have our talking circle, and where we create space, and where we create community for femme and non-binary. We create space when it's needed the most. Unfortunately, when people have passed, right? Altars or street spaces, and this is not some Because we've learned traditions, we know we need to do it, right? Whether it's been at the verdict of Zimmerman after Trayvon Martin's murder here in Boyle Heights when Chicanx and Latinx brought up, or the Ayotzinapa teachers and student teachers, this is in front of the Mexican consulate in Los Angeles, or when a homeless woman or a houseless woman from East LA was connected and found in Belvedere Park. So these spaces, we keep building community because we need to sometimes, right? Not even trying to or wanting to or creating, but because we have to, because our peoples are under attack. I wanted to make sure to share this image because Mita will be sharing a little bit later, I believe, her video or her film. Mita Cuaron, one of the original walkout participants in 1968 walkout of East LA. We have intergenerational programs where we're talking to Garfield and Roosevelt, which is the local rival high schools, these young women, high school students, meeting the predecessors of 50 years before, 1968 to 2018 when we had this event, women of the walkout, right? And just sharing, focusing on the community's members that maybe weren't always talked about or weren't always shown. And so it was important for us to share this across solidarity and community spaces, working with indigenous communities, which are ourselves, but also those who are building the Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations and honoring, specifically in Los Angeles, which is Chrissy Castro, my fellow professor at Cal State LA and former chair of the Pan-African Studies Department, which is Dr. Melina Abdullah, who also is one of the key leaders of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, and Bambi Salcedo, a Trans-Latina Coalition. So really honoring our intersectionality and our connections to our work. The retrospective exhibition which we've created, knowing that hundreds or thousands of people who we would never meet, including young students, would come to this museum and see our work. So how could we create and connect to a space if it wasn't me, just me, or some of the other women going to a space, then creating something like this would be in her story. One of the most important ones for us is our online ofrendas, because there's we have over 111,000 quote unquote followers, but I'm gonna say community on Instagram and 35,000 plus on Facebook. And what does that mean? It means there's people who are looking to create spaces just like us, or similar or different, and collectives that are connected to DJing or music or just LGBTQIA issues or just immigrant rights issues or all of that together, right? So we were always doing stuff online, but when the pandemic hit, how were we gonna build community online? And we already had a big base, so we started doing all our programming on streaming, StreamYard, live streams, Facebook, like we're doing now, or YouTube. And so we have a YouTube channel and Instagram Lives where you can find a lot of our programming, a lot of our panels and pláticas still living on our YouTube and on our Instagram page. Again, right now, we have our book anthology, which is we're really excited to talk about, and this is some of the different women who have been involved in Mujeres de Maiz. There's 2 PhD dissertations written about us, 2 masters and 4+ M.F.As around the work. And I share that because we're in an academic setting, but we were also always trying to figure out how to do our work, but also, right, get the diploma and also learn how to not only survive, but as women of color and indigenous and BIPOC communities, how we could thrive. And therefore, it usually means in educational settings and sharing with other people. Just wanted to share this quick project, which is our Cultura Cura cards. I don't think they've been here to Arizona yet, but they're based on the elote carts. As Mujeres de Maiz means corn, women of the corn. And so these were made to go to community spaces such as protests or community cultural centers or spaces to make posters for politics issues, show documentaries, project images, whatever it was needed for the P's of public art, poetry panels, pláticas, plethora of other ideas. And so this is kind of the public art in action. And some of the silk screen that have created from the cart or in general about key issues in our community. Again, building community even through a poster. And the Botanica del Barrio, again, talking about the holistic issues and community spaces, but again, with the cart. This community praxis project is talking about mental health issues in our communities, and it was through the We Rise program. speaking and going across the 4 directions of Southern California in order to speak about mental health issues. And the way we did it was create festivals and events with Indigenous, Black, and people of color communities focusing on femme and women and their knowledge base and their experiential knowledge already. So we were building community even when we could only, the Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health gave us this grant, and they said, because of the pandemic, okay, now you can only, first you could have a group, okay, now you can only have 10 people because of COVID, right? So we were streaming, everything was streaming to all the different things we could have to still build that community. And as an educator, I have what I have people call, because my name is Felicia Montes, and Fe, right, is what I usually go by, so I'm like, Pro-Fe. So the Profe pedagogy is, I always do creative projects for our final project. It's due in like a week or two, because we're ending week 13 right now. And these are some of the creative projects of my students, right? The praxis that they've learned. Mainly, most of these are from our class, which is Cultural Expressions in the Americas. So you can see, even if they didn't, they're not quote unquote artists or painters or even poets. They're making corridos, they're making beautiful paintings, photographs with their grandmothers, right? Or figuring out things, an ode to Frida and others about creating space and creating communities in our communities. So this is just kind of numbers of how we've created community over the last 25 years and the amounts of this. And I think this is definitely a low number, but what we've figured out from our surveys. And that in the end, really, community creates change. We know we can do it through the arts and through arts and public practice. You've seen various issues and causes, and there's just as many possibilities. So I'm really excited to learn about the different work that you all are doing today and the panels and pláticas and videos and sharing that you'll do in your presentations in a bit. So I wanted to share some of our websites and social media, which are all here. And just thank you and open it up for questions and answers. So thank you so much again for having me.
I'll moderate the Q&A. Yes. Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you. Wasn't that amazing? So inspiring. What a wonderful keynote address. I truly feel inspired, and it's making me think of back when I was in the classroom and teaching Spanish for heritage learners. We did oral history. Students interviewed their grandparents that found out that one, for example, her grandmother was a soldadera and a nurse working in, helping the troops in the Mexican Revolution. Thank you so much. It's amazing. So we have about 5 minutes for discussion and Q&A. So if you have a question, we have a microphone here, and those who are in the overflow rooms, if they can come to the microphone to ask Fe questions, I'll be happy to facilitate the discussion. So any questions or comments? This is our opportunity to have an incredible dialogue. Yes, Francisca.
Hello? Okay.
It works.
So, yes, come on up and come and ask your questions, but I'll ask the first one to get this rolling. So, I just learned from you that you are la hija de Carlos Montes, right? Yes, yes. But his name is always out there in the history books, right? As one of the founders and leaders of the Brown Beret. What was it like growing up with? I mean, I can see the effects, right, of growing up with leaders of the Chicano movement. But, you know, like I said, Carlos Montes is in all the history books as a founder of the Brown Berets. It was a very important, impactful organization in the movement. What was that like?
Well, I think two things. If you saw the family picture, and I was with another kind of children of the movement yesterday, which is the band Quetzal. I don't know if you know, they're children of the movement also. And I saw two of them yesterday, and it's either similar to other things, like you're like really, really into music, your children might be really, really into music, or not at all. So it also happens in the political movements or community spaces. So I've realized that many of us like continue the struggle and continue that, or some will, like my brother or others, their brother, like will just, you know, not be connected to it. I think the most important part for me, which I realize what might change and be different, is spirituality. I didn't grow up with spirituality because they were, you know, had lost and disconnected from it because of what they learned in terms of the colonization and et cetera. And so they moved away from it completely. We're not even cultural Catholics. I wasn't baptized, things like that. So I had to connect my own path. And so I think very different for me is that like every weekend, instead of church, our church was like a community march or a meeting on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, you know, like I was connecting under the table when they were organizing marches or organizing community spaces or political issues. You know, all of us were like somewhere, all the kids were creating something else in the corner, right? So it was one or the other usually, but I think for me, again, I shared that I knew there was something about being Xicana, and so I just not until a college education was I able to really put all the words and history and information and dates and really bring the whole understanding to what was going on. And so growing up, it was many community spaces and lots of meetings. But I think other than that, for me, it was important to, you know, like today, Mita is my mom's really good friend. And Mita Coron, you know, it's being around a lot of people who were artistic or creating or organizing and were doing things for their community. So I've lived a very blessed life in that. And then also, right, I also talk about now I try to do normal people things, which I like to go to like a lot of sports now. I like go to baseball games and like soccer games and things that I did probably but I didn't remember that as much. And so I like to do that, like go to dances. And I try to keep a balance of, you know, not 24/7 organizing and art and really enjoy radical joy, which a lot of people are speaking about, right, in the last 10 to 20 years, understanding balance, rest as much as possible. Yeah, so good question.
Thank you.
Hi, I have another question. My name is Mariah, and I have been involved with the legacy of just power building and community organizing as well. And I'm just blown away at your interdisciplinary approach to this work. And I just turned 31, and I just was wondering if you had advice, like as you're building this power and investing in this mutualism and this ecology of just like fierce love and work and camaraderie, do you struggle with disconnectedness, and what advice would you give to folks that are in community work and feeling disconnected from the work?
Wow, good question. So I think for me, the spirituality, right, like, is really, really key. And I know not everybody might be open to that, but even like the opening that we had today, right? So you might be from a different tradition or creation, connection, or space, but just kind of grounding, connecting to Mother Earth, the land, I think that's really important for us. So when we organize our events, we always do it in a talking circle, or we always check in, right? We're first always in a circle. We always have our medicine there, usually from the south, which is the copal medicine, or poposhcomer, our copalero, which is our incense burner, right? So we create a sacred space for us and a safe, brave space for us to organize. Because what would happen when I was burnt out at 24, or right after college, was that I was going to the immigrants' rights meeting, I was going to the ethnic studies meeting on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I was going to the feminism, maybe Wednesday night, the Zapatista, and at midnight doing my homework, maybe, right? Which happens to a lot of activist or community spaces and students. And so in Mujeres de Maiz, we were able to be our immigrant, queer, feminist, all those things, and artist selves. We didn't have to like that meeting, we're not so, now it's different, I think. You can be very out about all of our creation and spaces. But I think then, and even harder in the 70s, was that we weren't able to be our full intersectional connected selves in those spaces. So two things I think is that finding a space or creating that space and that community that you can be your whole self and be unapologetic, and it be sacred and understood and honored and praised, and saying, yes, keep going, right? Not just tolerated, but woo, we want more of that, like keep doing it, we love you, like supportive groups. And then also that space to like take care, right? whatever taking care. I know self-care is like the new hashtag and word and has been for a while, but our indigenous and ancestors were always doing self-care, right? They didn't call it hashtag self-care, and it might not have been green juice and yoga, although I love green juice and yoga, but it was, you know, sobadas, or it was a tea that they were giving you to warm your heart, but also to settle your stomach and the nerves, right? And so reconnecting or bringing that type of knowledge to these kind of spaces that maybe aren't as open. So I loved, you know, Elizabeth bringing us into that space. I was like, thank you. Thank you for doing that, because oftentimes I'll do that in class or in spaces, or I'll start like that, but you all did that already because you know, right? And so, or you've learned or you've been taught. And so I think doing those things is would be two suggestions, right? If it's possible, and if it's not, finding at least that one other person to do that, because we just started, our talking circles were just 2 at the beginning, right? And 2 to 4 to 5, and now we have hundreds, and people come and go, but our community is, people say, well, there's been groups that I've showed that are like no longer together, or they're broken up, but we're like, we can never be broken up. Like, it's a different connection now, right? It's not about us anymore. It's generational, and it's our ancestors that were, the femifested or manifested prayers of our ancestors are us, and then we're also doing that for the future 7 generations. And so it's a blessing and a responsibility, and we don't take it lightly. So thank you. I also wanted to honor some of the Tucson friends here, right, that I've connected and built community. I was like, I should have definitely put some of those images from back in the day, but who have done a lot of the work here that I've connected with years ago also, and of course those who are doing it now and who brought me here to speak about some of the work. So good to see you all. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Thank you for sharing and talking about safe spaces, circles, creating this space right here of family, of collectiveness, of collaboration. It's incredible. And thank you for sharing all of the different, la cultura cura, about poetry, about song, about writing, exhibitions, multimedia artwork, social practices. It truly, I think, has inspired all of us. And on a personal note, I used to write short stories and poetry, and I haven't for years. But I think that's part of my own self-care. So you've inspired me, and I'm going to start doing that again, just for myself, not to share or anything, but just for my own. Maybe at the open mic. Thank you. Muchas gracias a usted. So now we'll take a few minutes for a break, a 10-minute break. It's now 9:45, so let's come back at 9:55, please, and we will continue then. So if you don't know, the restrooms are out this door, down the hallway to the left. Thank you.
We're going to be starting in just a minute, if you will take your seats.
Hello, everyone. We're going to ask that you all sit down so we can continue with the program, please. I know it's a fun time to mingle and to get to know each other and reconnect. So before we go on, I just want to make sure, I think the TUSD students have arrived and want to make sure they're all settled. If not in this room, in the overflow room, right? So, okay, I think they're all okay. Excellent. So for this next portion, I would like to introduce Dr. Francisca James Hernandez, who's faculty and department head of the Ethnic Gender Transborder Studies at Pima Community College and former colleague of mine. So she's going to introduce some scholarships, and then we'll continue with the panel and Cassandra. So Dr. James Hernandez.
Gracias, Doctora Duran Cerda. It's an honor to have you here again, being Mistress of Ceremonies par excellence. And it's an honor to have all of you here of the community, our Pima community, our wider Tucson community, back here in person at our summit after an absence of 2 or 3 years, interrupted by that guy that nobody invited, COVID, right? So I am the head of the Department of Ethnic Gender Transborder Studies and Sociology that is the host and sponsor of this annual summit. And I'm very happy and proud to be that and to have this opportunity and to be blessed with this opportunity to be with you all. And I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about our department and how we go about promoting the theme of our conference this year, our summit, of making community or community making. We, as a department, offer a variety of disciplines in the ethnic gender transborder fields: American Indian Studies, Mexican American Studies, Gender and Women's Studies, Global Transborder Studies, Sociology, and our newest African American Studies. And of course, you know, we are rooted as a department and as discipline in a history of struggle for social justice. And I'm so glad to be speaking after our honored guest, Felicia Montes, because she's a wonderful example, right, of the outcome of these struggles and what our disciplines are about and why we are here today. So we, as a department, though, officially was established in the fall of 2017. And so we're in our infancy still as a department. But we came out crying and screaming and laughing, right? We came out of the womb of Pima College, and we are continuing to grow and cry and scream and laugh together. We offer courses and disciplines that center the histories, cultures, economics, politics, and identities of people of color, people of multiple genders and diverse sexualities, and we do that from our own perspectives and on our own terms. We encourage students to critically evaluate the social construction and intersections of ethnicity, race, class, gender, sexuality, and nationality in order to better understand ourselves and our society and for us to be able to make more enlightened choices. And of course, we explore stories, social movements, diaspora struggles, and achievements of historically marginalized peoples in the United States, but also around the world. So we prepare our learners to become agents of change in their families, communities, and institutions like Pima College, and on behalf of a democratic and socially just society. These are the core faculty of our department. You will be meeting, each of them today will be coming up to speak at the podium during the course of the day. The only one there that's not here is one of the co-founders of our department, down middle center, Rosalia Solorzano. As Dolores said, she's here with us in spirit. In fact, she's watching the live stream right now. So be on your best behavior. We are thinking of you, Rosalia, and thanking you because we feel your spirit here with us today. So how do we make community? We do it in a whole range of ways as a department, right? Just being a department is itself community making. That's one of the key purposes of creating a department, is to create a community, an institutionalized base for disciplines to develop themselves with the expertise of faculty, of academics who have been trained in those areas, right? But we have also, and we do non-traditional things like this summit. This summit was our first public event in 2016. We had an ethnic and gender studies forum. That was our first one, and we've done now this seventh one since then. And we also in the fall have a lecture, a public lecture. Some of you may have already been to that. And we've named it after Raquel Rubio Goldsmith, there in the bottom corner, one of our sheroes, right? She's one of the founding faculty of Pima College and was one of the first to start Mexican American and Native American studies at Pima College. So we honor our ancestors, our antecedentes, and our foremothers and forefathers who went before and struggled for us. We also have statewide alliances. We've created statewide alliances in the Maricopa system, in the other community colleges, in the universities. We're the leaders in creating the Arizona Ethnic Studies Articulation Task Force, which ensures that our classes, the ones that you take with us, will transfer to the university. Very important, right? And other things. And there in the middle is Donna Thompson, our colleague from Chandler Gilbert, who was here. And these photos many of them that I'm showing you are from our earlier summits. And I just wanted to share this with you because as part of making community, these external partners that we work with, there are many, right? I just named some of them. But one I want to especially recognize today are our partners in the TUSD school district in the Mexican American Studies program, because for the first time, our summit is hosting students from the Mexican American Studies Dual Enrollment Program from TUSD. So TUSD in the house. Woo! We are so excited about this because having you here today, you students from TUSD, was 6 years in the making. We have been working for 6 years to get these courses up and running in TUSD. We, in partnership with Mexican American Studies folks over in TUSD. These things don't happen easily or fast, but that's why we have to be persistent, 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 and patient, right? Don't take no for an answer. When you want social justice, say yes, right? And don't take no for an answer. So welcome TUSD MAS dual enrollment students. We will be waiting for you here at Pima when you graduate from high school, right? So I can stand here all day and talk to you about what we do. I would love to do that because I love to talk about our department and our program. But there is no one better to talk about our program than our students. And so we have invited here a very special guest to speak to you. Cassandra Jones, where are you? Come on up, Cassandra. Yes, let's give her a hand. Cassandra is special among special guests because, Cassandra, we are so proud of you.
Thank you.
She is the first graduate of our department in 2019. She graduated from our department at PCC. In 2 years, we established the department in 2017. In 2 years, she got her AA. She was just all in, right? And now, just last December, she transferred to the university, and just last December, she graduated from the University of Arizona with a double major in gender and women's studies and sociology. So let's give it up for, and congratulations.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. I wrote it all down because I only have like 3 minutes. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here today to speak about how the EGTSS department here at Pima has deeply impacted my life. As a non-traditional college student, returning to school was not an easy decision. To be honest, it took me about 5 years to decide to enroll, but pursuing a degree in ethnic gender, transborder studies, and sociology gave me new tools to understand and analyze the world around me in not only ways that I had never considered before, but also provided me with the language to express and better understand that which I had experienced. This was intriguing. These insights allowed me to better understand my own experiences as a Black woman and to see how the challenges I faced were not just individual struggles, but part of larger systemic issues, that I was not alone, that I was never the problem. And finding this department felt like finally coming home. I was amazed that I was able to find a department that allowed me to study so many topics of interest without sacrifice, that I was able to identify with the curriculum, that I saw myself and heard my voice too for the first time in my life. Through interdisciplinary study, I learned to critically examine the social and cultural structures that shape our lives, to recognize the intersections of race, gender, class, sexuality, and ability, nationality that often go unseen. The impact this department has had on my life has been profound. Not only did it deepen my understanding of the world, but it also gave me a sense of purpose and direction. I gained valuable skills in research, writing, communication, and critical thinking, which have been essential to my success as a student and beyond. I learned to ask questions, explore my curiosity, seek out information, and construct arguments based on evidence and analysis. In addition, through my studies, for the first time in my life, I heard my voice in what I was reading. I felt understood, and my passion for social justice was reignited. The department definitely set me up for success. As Francisca said, I was able to transfer to UA almost effortlessly. Because of the cross-listed nature of the courses, I was able to double major with ease, as many of the credits double dipped in the prereqs for multiple degrees, ranging from sociology to anthropology to gender and women's studies and more. 4 years and a pandemic later, I'm proud to say that I was able to prioritize my mental health, excel academically, and graduated top of my class from U of A with a double major in gender and women's studies and sociology. But, thank you. But more importantly, I have been able to apply what I've learned in my life, raising my child, within interpersonal relationships, in my activism and community involvement, and hopefully one day as an educator as well. Not only was I the first graduate of the department, but I was also their first work study. Working for the department was an incredible learning experience that afforded me the opportunity to not only develop professional skills in like event organization, community organization, just organization. But also gain a deeper understanding of the expansive benefits that culturally relevant education has for students, for educators, for community, and institutions as a whole. And I know for a fact that PIMA as a whole, admin included, could benefit immensely from the invaluable knowledge and insights that this department has to offer. When I look to my future, working at a community college is very important to me. Within this department in particular, I had the most thoughtful and encouraging professors who became mentors and really showed their students that they believed in them, myself included. I want to be that person for as many people as I can. I want to help people realize that their perspectives and voices matter and that they are needed and essential for the construction of a truly liberatory future. I hope that my story inspires others to pursue their passions, challenge their assumptions, and embrace the opportunity that this department has to offer you, and that you leave here today empowered to transform your life and community, because that's what this department's done for me. Thank you.
That's not the end. Oh, I guess I did. Can you get the big view? Yeah. So, Cassandra, thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and congratulations again on your academic successes and your personal successes with your baby, your new baby in your arms. Es una preciosa, muy bonita, muy linda, just like her mama. So, this is the active learning part of the program. You should have received this in your packet. If you would pull it out, please. It's here projected on the slideshow, on the PowerPoint. This is our departmental flyer, right? And it has a thumbnail of information that I shared with you already. If you flip it around, you'll see the classes that we're offering in the fall, and a lot of information about those classes. And there's a website for you to learn more about the classes and to enroll. Okay? So please, think about enrolling, or no, don't even think about it, just do it. Right? Just do it. It'll be a great favor you do for yourself, and encourage others to enroll also. Flipping back to the front page, you will see also information about scholarships, and this is another way we make community and that we support our students in our community. We do fundraising for our scholarships, and we have 2 scholarships. How come it did that? Okay, so while he's getting back my presentation, you can see here there's information on scholarships, and we have 2 scholarships, Ethnic Gender Transborder Studies and Fundación Mexico Mexican American Studies Scholarship that we raise monies for. And we give scholarships every semester, so I encourage students to apply for these scholarships, all you need to have done is taken one of our courses successfully and have a 2.5 GPA, and that's almost pretty much it. The requirements are right here. And as I said, we award them every semester. And we want to take a little bit of time to acknowledge and recognize our award winners. So our first one is here with us right now. Loida Vance, would you please come up? And Dolores Duran Cerda, our provost, is going to introduce her and present her with a certificate of award. Come on up, Loida. Come on up. Yeah.
Thank you, Francisca. So Loida is a liberal arts student, and she is receiving the scholarship from the EGTSS department. She's a full-time student. She is graduating in fall of 2023 and is transferring to the University of Arizona in Spanish. So Loida, we have this certificate for you for your scholarship. Photo op.
Hello, I'm Loida Vance. I'm so honored to have received this scholarship. Thank you so much for choosing me as a FAFSA student. Every dollar truly counts. I also want to thank PIMA for having these types of opportunities for students. The Scholarship Universe site is a great help, as it can be hard to look for scholarships on your own. And it was thanks to my class, The History of Native Nations in North America, that I was able to be eligible for this scholarship. I learned more in-depth information about Native Americans that hadn't been brought to my attention before. It is truly a beautiful culture that is ever growing. I also want to thank my family, as they always help push me in the right direction and always provide a helping hand to all my problems, and I love them so much. Thank you once again for the scholarship, as it has been a great help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Loida. We wish you the best of success as you transfer to the U of A. Next, we have Sandy Morales Monzon. Is Sandy here? Okay. She is a student in the program of radiologic technology, and she is receiving the Fundación Mexico Mexican American Studies scholarship. She's a full-time student and will be graduating in May of 2024. So she also has her certificate and scholarship, and let us acknowledge and recognize her accomplishments. And the last student, I don't think they're here either, but it's Angel Avila. And Angel is also a full-time student in radiologic technology and is receiving the Fundación Mexico Mexican American Studies Scholarship, and is also a May 2024 graduate. So let us also acknowledge Angel for the scholarship. And you know, these students are amazing. They're wonderful. But they wouldn't be receiving and achieving these accomplishments if it weren't for the faculty. The faculty are the ones who are instructing and guiding them, all of us at the college, but the faculty are in the classroom every day with these students. So I really want to highlight this department and the division as a whole, humanities, social sciences, and education. So those of you who are faculty, please raise your hand so we can acknowledge you. Thank you. And I know our dean is here too, Dr. Michael Parker. And Cassandra, I think she may have already left. Oh, there you are. Cassandra, thank you so much. You truly are inspiring, and as being the first student to graduate from this department. Thank you so much. So now we are moving on to our panel discussion segment of the program. There will be 3 panel discussions. The first one will take place before lunch, and the remaining 2 will take place after lunch. Each panel will have a moderator and a timekeeper. Each panel is scheduled for 1 hour, followed by a 15-minute Q&A. So at this time, I'm going to welcome back Dr. Stewart to the stage to begin the panel discussion. And so, Dr. Stewart, please join us?
Here's the podium. Thank you, thank you. It's not my way. Hello, everyone. While I get adjusted here, we're going to be moving on to a panel discussion about activism and resistance. But before we move on to that panel discussion, I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit about American Indian Studies. American Indian Studies is a way of our students seeing indigenous peoples through their own lens. It isn't history or education or culture through an American lens, it's through an indigenous lens. And we study not only tribes and nations and peoples across the United States, but we also look at Canada and Mexico, the Caribbean, Hawaii, Alaska. We try to include so many different cultures. And we hope that what they take away is an understanding of the diversity of these peoples. We also give courses in that are focused on Southwestern tribes and nations. And then we also provide a couple of classes that are specific to our neighbors on the O'odham and then on the Pascua Yaqui. So I'm hoping that if you're interested in any of these topics, as Francisca said, just register for them. Okay, so our panel consists of 4 persons, and nobody let me know whether I was supposed to introduce everybody all at one time or just one at a time, so I'm gonna do one at a time. And the first panelist is Caitlin Kramer, and she has earned her bachelor's degree in psychology and is working on her master's degree in psychology with a focus on coaching, life coaching, excuse me. And she will be talking to us about foster care and adoption. And the title of her presentation is Putting the Care Back into Foster Care. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's so nice to see you all today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored to be able to speak about my community service initiative, which is putting the care back in foster care. So thank you guys so much. So a little bit about me to start off. I am Caitlin, and I am University of Arizona alumni. I got a degree in psychology with a minor in leadership studies and practice, and I'm currently working at GCU to obtain my master's in psychology with an emphasis in life coaching. A little bit about me, as I'm from the small border town of Douglas, Arizona. So I grew up there all my life, and I absolutely loved it there. Then after graduating from high school, went to U of A, and I have a big involvement within pageantry. I've been competing since I was about 5 years old, and I absolutely loved it. It's given me skills like this, being able to speak in front of you all, so public speaking, it's really just motivated me when it comes to community service, and it's allowed me to kind of find my passion, not only within community service, but within my career. I'm currently Miss Sierra Vista, so I'm representing Southern Arizona. So in June, I'll be competing at Miss Arizona, and if I win that, I get to go to Miss America. So yes, thank you. So thank you so much. So I am very excited to talk a little bit about my community service initiative, which is putting the care back in foster care. So currently, just a little background about me as well. So I previously worked at the Arizona Association of the Arizona Children's Association. And what that is I was a youth support specialist, so I worked with foster youth ages 16 to 21 who are getting ready to transition out of foster care. And I also worked as a foster care and adoption specialist, where I was able to work with families who were interested in either fostering or adopting children. And this is really important to me because it actually is the same organization that helped my mom, she's the lady with the blue hair, adopt me. So being able to work and give back was amazing. And now I currently work at Compass High School. I absolutely love working there. I love all my kiddos. And I'm a student council teacher, so I'm teaching them leadership skills and how to make a change not only within the school, but represent the community. And I also do social work as well there. So I work with our foster youth there and connecting them to resources for whatever they may need. So again, my hometown was Douglas, Arizona. So for those of you who don't know, Douglas is about 2 hours south of Tucson, right on the border. So right here on the bottom, you can see one side is Douglas and one side is Agua Prieta, Mexico. And I absolutely loved living in Douglas, and just being able to grow up in such a diverse community really fueled my passion for everything that I do. So yeah, that's a little bit about Douglas. So I started my organization called Project Happiness Arizona after I took a class at the University of Arizona called Schooling and Diversity. We talked a little bit about how your schooling and your education, where you came from, your social economic standing has an effect on your schooling, and it made me think back to my time in school. In Douglas, it is a lower economic town, so I remember like when we would be getting ready to go to school, a lot of my friends would struggle with school supplies. It was something that they couldn't afford, and the reality of it is if children do not have the school supplies that they need to start off in the beginning of the school year, they're already starting off at a disadvantage. So I wanted to do something about it, and so what I did is I started my school supply drive that I started in 2017, a freshman at the U of A, and I just literally started asking people to donate school supplies. So these are what my numbers look like, and every year I host a drive, and so I have been able to give back to all 5 public elementary schools in my hometown of Douglas, as well as the 2 middle schools and the high school, and I've even now been able to branch this off now that I live up here in Tucson as well. So I've done a lot of this work, and now I'm kind of transitioning into still doing this, but doing something else which has to do with the foster youth. So I started Project Care Bags, and what that is in my experience as a foster care and adoption specialist, there was a moment where I was helping one of my youth transition to a new foster home. And he got out of the car and he was moving all of his belongings in a trash bag. And it really broke my heart because I thought, what message are we sending these kids when we tell them to move the things that are most important to them, the things that identify them for who they are in trash bags? It doesn't send a very good message. And I wanted to do something about that. So I decided to do luggage drives. And so what I do currently is I collect around Arizona or whoever would like to donate. I collect luggage, and what I do with that is I am able to donate them to the Arizona Association of Student Councils as well as the Arizona Department of Child Safety. That way, when case managers know that their children are transitioning or moving to different placements, they're able to do it with a little bit more dignity. So it's small things like this that do matter, and everything that we do with our youth is super important in the way that we speak to them, in the way that we treat them. And so again, it's putting that care back into the foster care system. And funding is something that we struggle with. There's not a lot of resources sometimes, so being able to do this and being able to have the community's help to be able to make this difference is super important, and I'm glad I'm able to do this. So right now I'm currently having a school supply drive and a luggage drive as well. So I have already been collecting tons of luggage. I have so many in my room and in my house, but it's so awesome to see because it just motivates me to continue my work. So on here, it's just some information, and on this last slide here, it has my Instagram and my social media on the bottom. If you want to reach out, if you want to connect, if you want to donate, if you want to learn more, again, this is something that is so important, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to speak to you guys about it. But finally, I just want to leave you with a quote that has always just touched my heart by Maya Angelou. I absolutely love reading her poetry. And it says, "I have learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." So in everything that I do and everything that I strive to do, I want people to feel seen and heard and represented, okay? So it's so important. So
Even though I am one of the only few candidates who is representing Southern Arizona, I hope to do it with pride and to make you guys all proud at the Miss Arizona competition. But also I'm one of the very few, there's only me and another girl who is the only Black candidates who are competing for Miss Arizona. And it has been over 21 years since we have had a Black Miss Arizona. That stuff is important. Representation is important. And I hope that I'm able to have that opportunity to take up space, as it was mentioned before, and to make a change. So thank you again so much for your time. I appreciate you all, and if you have any questions, I'll be able to answer on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello again. Everybody doing okay so far? Yes. Is this not inspiring? Oh, my goodness. So, our next panelist is Augustine Lopez Jr. You met him at the opening ceremony, but I want to say a little more about Augustine and what he's going to be presenting on. Augustine has been a tribal police officer, and he's also been a part of the U.S. military. And I want to thank Augustine for his service. Thank you so much. We as educators are here because other people put their lives on the line for us every day. And I personally appreciate it, and I know you do too. Augustine is going to be talking about missing, I'm going to take my glasses up. I'm sorry, the lights hurt my eyes. I apologize. Augustine is going to be talking about missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, or as he calls it, relatives. And the title of his presentation and what he's going to be speaking about today is The Silent Distress. So, Augustine?
How do you do this? Hello again. Again, my name is Augustine Lopez. As Sherry said, I am a U.S. Army retired veteran, U.S. Army sergeant. I did 2 tours in Iraq in 2004 and 2007. It was during the biggest part of the war, the Reconstruction. Prior to that, I was a police officer with the Tohono Nation and the Pasquayaki Nation, which has led me to this passion of, once I retired from the military, I wanted to do something bigger. I knew work was no more because I was medically disabled for PTSD. So I decided one day to go to school, and I enrolled at the University of Arizona as I wanted to do painting, but I got into the photography department. I really wanted to create work about my people in a modern way, represent my people in a modern way through the lens, you know, bring out the beauty in my people. During this time, this was back in 2020, we had just heard about missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. In 2018, there was a total of 5,712 missing and murdered Indigenous women. As of today, 2022, I believe Arizona came out with a report, and there's over 6,000 missing and murdered Indigenous women in the United States. 574 are males, and this is an epidemic that's very silent because no one is not aware of this epidemic. Throughout our history, we were considered a savage nation, and that we needed to be erased, which created us in going into time that we began to lose our identity, our sense of belonging. They threw us on reservations to try to survive through starvation, through residential schools, assimilation. And these are things that we have gone through. With this trauma other traumas happened. And, you know, with the residential schools, after that, parents didn't know how to discipline their kids. So I wanted to talk to you about that because it's a whole thing that's going on that's really causing this epidemic. And the reason why it's silent is because our government chose to ignore it until Savannah Lafontain's Act was initiated in 2018. What that was a Native woman was murdered. She was 8 months pregnant. She was murdered by her neighbors, and her baby was cut out of her stomach. They found her body in the Red River, and the baby was found. Thank God she was found. So that created the Savannah's Act, which is the government finally seeing what was going on with Native people. And that act is for basically collecting data for missing and murdered Indigenous. Not quite the action, but the data. But since the pandemic happened, Arizona decided to create their own task force. As of this year, the task force, there's an Arizona task force for missing and murdered Indigenous relatives. So in 2020, when I started school, I created this work called the Silent Distress. And I wanted to create work that talked about raising awareness on this issue because I wanted people to know what was going on with my people. Because this is happening all over the world, not just in the United States. So what I did is I created this work as an awareness piece, but then I noticed that's all it was. And people weren't attaching themselves to this epidemic. And my job as a Native person is to spread that awareness as much as possible, build collaborations and build unity within the community so we can all work together to find this, because not only this is happening, what's going to happen when this is done? Women in this country, Native women in this country represent 1% of the population. What's going to happen? Who's going to be the next victim? Non-Natives. And it's happening now with human trafficking. Human trafficking is one of the biggest things that's happening here in Arizona and in Mexico. I know because I own a house in Mexico, and I see what goes on there. I don't talk about it, I don't document it, I listen. And that's all you hear. It's either the violence or now the trafficking. And that's what created this passion in me, because coming from a law enforcement background and military, I want to be the protector of my people. So not only do I work with missing and murdered, I also work with the residential school epidemic, which in Arizona they found unmarked graves, over 500 unmarked graves in residential schools here in Arizona. And many don't know where the families are at. Many don't know who the person is. So I'm starting to combine my work with residential schools. And also another issue that came up is the Indian Child Welfare Act. I come from the foster care system. I was raised since I was 11 in the system until I was 19. So I understand that ICWA protected me, and it helped me a lot to be where I'm at today, because it helped me to be raised within my people, to learn my values, my traditions, and it kept it inside me. And what's going on with the ICWA Act is that the American government want to give Native children to non-Native parents. And it's in the Supreme Court now, and they heard the arguments, but we just don't know what's going to happen. And we're not against the child being in a non-Native home. It's just we want our child to grow up the way we did, the way we are, Native. And if you put them in a non-Native home, they would not have the understanding of their background. And also, the kid's identity eventually will be lost, because that connection to the people will never be there again, you know what I mean? So, like I said, when I created this project, I wanted to highlight the movement. So I'm just gonna go all the way here. It's a big project. Sorry, I have to skip all this. Okay, the silent distress was a call to America. I put an upside-down flag to represent the distress. In military, when your post is overrun, you need help. You put a flag upside down to let other units around the area know that you're overrun and you need help. That's the distress signal that we do in military. So what I wanted to do is create work that represented that flag upside down, because Native communities are asking for help. They're going through distress and they need help. We need help. So I created this first photo here with myself showing the blind eye of justice. The handprint is a representation of the movement, the silence of the victim. The red dress is for the women, and there is a red shirt, but that's for the males and the boys and girls. And the other photo is a photo that I combined the missing and murdered epidemic, but also the residential school. So the whole slogan for residential schools was "Kill the Indian, save the man." So what I did is I created a photo with the child upside down flag for distress and with the saying, "Kill the Indian," because they never saved. The third photo is a photo of a child's hands bound by the American flag, asking for distress. And the government ignoring these issues. And that's what I wanted to represent in this photo. And the last photo is just a photo of a mother and son. Son looking one direction, mother looking and straight forward. Basically, it's a signal. It's basically saying that the child is going one way, the mother is trying to find that child. So I wanted to represent that closeness to them and also that separation between them. I wish I had a longer time to speak, but like I said, this problem is happening all over the United States. Every reservation, every community. It's happening in Mexico, it's happening in Mexican-American communities. And we need awareness on this issue. Not just for my people, but for your people. Because it's gonna spread. If we don't make a change now and work with law enforcement, work with our government officials, and our government listening to the community, and working together to build this collaboration, I think that's what we need, is everybody collaborating and working together. Instead of us doing one thing here, one thing here, one here, one here. We need to create something where we need to make this change, because eventually it can't happen to any of us, any of our kids. And just think about it like that, because they do not deserve that. No one does. That's all I got.
Thank you, Agustin, for those powerful words. And Dr. Stewart, we're going to continue with the next panelist.
You're welcome. Hello, everyone. I'm back again. Here I am. I am so moved by Augustin's words, because this is something that I teach in my classes in American Indian Studies, and it's some of the hardest material. These are such tough stories. But like I tell my students, these are the stories that we have to tell, and that's what Augustin is doing. He's telling the story. So our next panelist, excuse me, always makes me emotional to hear about that. Our next panelist is Darlene Peralta. She is an undocumented student. And once she left high school, she had a lot of struggles with working within higher education. And I'm going to let her tell you her story, but her presentation is Undocumented Students' Success in Higher Education.
I'm a little short. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. My name is Darlene Peralta. My pronouns are she, her, ella. And I just want to give a little bit of my background before I start the presentation. I have a club here at Pima called UYA, the Undocumented Youth Alliance, and we kind of just aim to create these pathways for Pima students in and outside of campus. And I'm also a student support fellow with Scholarships A through C, which is a nonprofit here in Tucson, Arizona, that aims to create pathways despite immigration status for students. Okay. Okay, so before I get started, I kind of just go over some terminology I'm going to be saying a lot. First one is undocumented. So undocumented are people who now hold a visa to live, work, or attend school in the United States and are referred to as documented. Do note that some undocumented individuals do have a visa, but it could be like a tourist 6-month visa. And then we have DACA, and this was an immigration policy that allows undocumented individuals that were brought to the country as children to receive a 2 renewable period from deportation. Do know, though, however, that the majority of high school students today do not have access to DACA or have DACA, since it's not up to renewal, but no new applications are being accepted. And this is not a pathway to citizenship for students. Okay, so I do want to note that the undocumented experience is different for students once they attend higher education than for students with status. Students that are undocumented do have access to Kid to Thrift Student, to Pilot versus Stowe, which was a Supreme Court case in 1982. But for undocumented students, their status means they cannot legally work, benefit from social services, or vote. And in some states, undocumented students are prohibited from higher education, and some, they can't receive a driver's license, open a bank account, or in-state tuition. 22 out of 50 states offer in-state tuition for undocumented students, and Arizona became one of those on November 14, 2022. So yay. And every year, more than 3,600 undocumented students graduate from an Arizona high school, but the percentage of them that attend higher education is much lower. This is due to the barriers they face. They face lack of social, legal, financial, and psychological support, and are often unable to obtain federal financial aid, which means they cannot work study, they cannot obtain loans, and scholarships and grants. And most scholarships that are offered require you to have a social security number, which means undocumented students cannot apply to such scholarships. So then we have private scholarships. So then we have a small pool of private scholarships for 3,600 students that are graduating high school, which they're not enough. So undocumented students must work harder and receive less aid during and before higher education. I myself, I'm a visual learner, so I just wanted to point out that the journey for undocumented students looks different than for students with status. And just a little bit about my story, I graduated in 2018, but I didn't attend higher education until 3 years after, because I didn't even know I could go, because I was really afraid to communicate that with my educators, and I know I couldn't afford it. So I took 3 years off, and in those 3 years I worked, and I was able to save enough money to afford 1 semester at Pima, which before Proposition 308 was $5,000. Before Proposition 308, undocumented students here at Pima were paying 300%. Undocumented students at the U of A and AU, ASU were paying 150% of the tuition rate. Today, they're able to pay 100% of tuition rate. But yeah, it was really difficult for me to obtain higher education. And it wasn't until I kind of had to out myself as an undocumented student where I was able to obtain these resources. Okay, just a little policy background. In Arizona specifically, we have Proposition 300, which is no longer in place due to Proposition 308. But this policy made it so undocumented students could no longer access in-state tuition. And we have SB 1070, also known as the Show Me Your Papers a clause, and it made a misdemeanor for undocumented individuals to not carry proper documentation in Arizona. So we talked a little bit about DACA, and in order to have DACA, you could not get a misdemeanor. So then we have undocumented students here in Arizona, and they were to get pulled over, and they're in the passenger seat of a friend, and they don't have documentation. That is a misdemeanor for them. So it's just this policies and legislation in place to kind of stop undocumented students from succeeding in higher education. Okay, now to good pro-immigrant policy in Arizona, which have Proposition 308 that just passed, and this allows undocumented students in Arizona to receive in-state college tuition when a student A attended a school in Arizona for a minimum of 2 years and then graduated from an Arizona high school. Okay, so how do we all kind of play a role in this, and how do our educators, our counselors, and teachers play a role in this? So the role of institutional agents and diffusion of responsibility when it comes to undocumented students. Institutional agents are often one of the only resources on campus for undocumented students. And this can mean the one counselor on campus that learns the policy for the school and the state, and then this becomes the only person on campus that is able to help undocumented students. But what happens when that person's sick or they have a family emergency, then there's longer no one on campus that is able to help undocumented students. And sometimes this is not done on purpose by institutional agents, but this is called diffusion of responsibility. And then so there's a task on hand that we presumably completed by someone else, a person is less likely to do themselves. And when institutional agents participate in this, they're particularly exclusionary practices under the guise of policy. So often, I've encountered counselors and they kind of directed me to someone else, and they're always directing me to that one person. And that's the only resource there is for me on PIMA. So I decided to create UYA. So other students, we were forced to create our own community on campus in order to advocate for each other. Okay, so how do we call it out? It starts with you. You might be the only resource on campus for an undocumented student, so you can learn the policy. And it's okay if you don't know something. I don't know everything. Policy regarding migration and undocumented students, but it's okay if you kind of do the research together and educate and talk to those around you. And okay, so we kind of talked about how to call it out, but how are we able to create this environment that leads to undocumented leadership? We can do that by creating a safe space. That means not asking students about their status, make resources visible for students. I didn't have bad educators and I didn't have bad teachers in high school, but none of them made it clear that they were supporters of undocumented students. So I didn't go to them because I didn't know they were. So it can be a poster, a bookmark, a shirt, a tote bag, anything that makes you visible for undocumented students, and they will go to you. Removing harmful language, and be loud about your support again. Be so, so loud. And then attend and learn institutional policies and legislation in your state, which you're doing right now. And then build a network. So often now there's only one person on campus, right? But if you're able to build a network with other educators outside your school, then undocumented students will have such a much larger network of resources for them. And find and advocate. Some scholars are gonna say they're not open for undocumented students. Send them an email. Hey, can you open this scholarship up? And then lastly, let them lead. Build agency and power and help students start a club to raise awareness about immigration issues and inform students about their right and connect them with other undocumented community leaders so they're able to guide the work and create agency and power. Okay, so I want to play a little game with y'all, kind of switching the roles and putting each other in each other's shoes. So this is a scenario. You're a college counselor and a student makes an appointment with you about Proposition 3A. However, they don't qualify. What do you do? Okay, and I don't think we have questions to play this little game, but we can just ponder together and wonder what you would do if this were to happen to you, okay? And then the next one is, we switch scenarios. You're an undocumented student. And in this scenario, you expressed in creating a club for undocumented students at your college campus, but you don't know any educators on your campus who might be willing to support you. What do you do? So we can just kind of think together on what if we were undocumented students, what would we do in order to support ourselves if we don't see that visible on our campus? And it's really important for undocumented students to have that visual support for them, to know that there is a community out there for them. Because it is scary to say you're undocumented, and I am a lot more comfortable than other students, and we don't want to out students out. But thank you, and I just want to say just thank you to Scholarships AC for all the support they have given me, and if you know any undocumented students, please send them my way, so I'll be able to give them the resources I have been given. Thank you.
One more. Okay. Okay, so we have one more panelist, Imelda Escar, and I'm sure that I've mispronounced that, so I apologize. She is a programming person for, or helps the programming of, Latina learners, and is part of helping young Latina women become or see themselves as good people. gain self-esteem, move forward in the world. And I will let her tell you about her presentation. Welcome, Ms.
So I'm yes. With this stuff?
Yes.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, first of all, to Liz Gagiola for inviting me. I told her many times that public speaking is not my thing. I'm nervous, and usually because English is my second language, and most of the times these kind of events provides translation for English to Spanish, but not for Spanish to English. So this is something to consider. I wish to present in Spanish because it's the way that my language flow better, but I will try the best that I can. Okay, thank you. What happened? Okay. Again, thank you for inviting me. So I will share about the work that I do at the YWCA and how my own experience led me to integrate this work, Promotoras Against Gender Violence. It's an honor again to be here, especially because I hear many already speakers to talk about many issues that relates to the work that I do at the YWCA too. And also, I will share how my own experience as a survivor of domestic violence led me to integrate domestic violence awareness and the work that I do with Latina women, and also has the previous panelists mentioned about undocumented students, but I also work a lot with undocumented parents. Okay, so what is the Latina Leadership Institute? So that we create a pathway for self-determination, self-love, self-acceptance, and a space to belong for immigrant women and their families. Every year we serve hundreds of women. We focus on personal growth, personal investment, and also community networking and engagement. Our work centralizes the voices of the community. We understand that being culturally and trauma-informed competent is an ongoing learning effort. We provide safe space, nurturing, and supported learning environment for participants. Our program offers babysitting, peer mentoring, learning and homework spaces. Also, we meet to meet the needs of the participants. And also, we offer refreshment, has simple things, has coffees and snacks and babysitting for the participant. Okay. So we offer ESL classes, 2 levels, beginners and advanced, twice a year during the spring and the fall. Each class consists of 12 sessions. Grammar, speaking, comprehension, and reading. Topics specifically related to the real problems, real issues in the world to improve the economic stability and social and cultural literacy is the focus. Okay. So we also offer GED classes. Peer mentoring and collaborative learning approaches have proved to be effective in goal settings and decision making that will contribute to the plan for the participant in obtaining their GED certification. The collaborative learning spaces are equipped with GED books, English, Spanish dictionaries, computers, and calculators. All of these tools are key to the success of the course, but overall to the development of self-efficacy in the community that we serve. So we can see on the photo the 3 graduates. So I want to speak a little bit about them. So that's the first 3 graduates in many years. So I work with the YWCA since 2016, and actually last year we have the first 3 graduates. What makes the difference from past year to this year is one of the participants, she was facing
a lot of issues like domestic violence, eviction during the pandemic, abuse, lack of resources. And during the pandemic, we received funding to help the participants. And I remember that she was going through a lot of depression, and because her basic needs wasn't met. And how can you progress, and how can you learn when you are living in an environment of violence? So that is not possible. So then we helped her to rent a space for her. And I remember we pay 3 months of rent, and it was a lot of problems renting a space for her because she was undocumented, and no one wants to rent a room for her. And I remember because I clean houses for many years, and I know this lady who owns a guest house in the back part of her house, and literally I begged her, can you please rent this room to her? And she doesn't want it to do it because she said she was risking I don't know how many things because I don't know, but she did it. And that's what I want to share, that she did it. And she rented that room to her for 3 months. And once she has that space, her own room, with her own child, she started flowing, she started passing the exam, she was totally different person. And why? Because she was a roof over her head. She was feeling safe, and I think that is so important, and that's one of the issues that we face, and I see very often with the participants that I work with, that they are struggling with housing. And housing right now, the crisis that we're seeing in housing is huge, and we don't have so many resources. The same for undocumented students, they don't have so many resources to get a scholarship or to get financial aid to pay for her studies. The same with undocumented families, so we don't have funding to help them to pay for housing. And that is a huge issue. And I feel a lot of emotion when I speak about that, because I can see the pain on the families, that not having a house is horrible. Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to share for the GED mentoring. So one of the students, she was facing a lot of issues, and now she is working with the YWCA too. She got a contract, and she's helping with coordinating some of the programs, especially one of the programs that I manage, that is the Comadritas program. So the Comadritas program is an older adult program that these comadritas, they gather together every Tuesday and Thursday just to socialize, because also we speak about identities. So having an older adult also places you in a place of disadvantage. And so with this program, so we seek to improve the well-being of the seniors, just gathering and being there, having hot meals, craft and art activities, exercises, and of course, playing bingo. If you don't play, they have to play bingo. They have to play bingo. If it's 11 a.m. and they don't play bingo, they get mad with us. They get really mad. So okay. And then, so we have the Mujeres y Niñas. This program, this is so this is an 8-course focused supporting mothers with their daughters to gain knowledge, belief, skills they need to understand, communicate, and express their sexuality in a healthy, life-enhancing ways. This course provides participants the unique opportunity for them to receive factual, comprehensive education about sexuality, as well as practice skills to support their physical, emotional health within the context of their families. Along with important discussion about sexuality, group participants share their belief, experience, and socialization around sexuality. So this is one of my favorite programs that I do at the YWCA. So it consists of 12 sessions. So the first 7 sessions, daughters and mothers are separate, and the last 5 sessions, they get together, and they are learning similar topics, but separate. For example, the girls learn about menstruation, and the mother learns about menopause. So the girls learn about dating violence, which is very common. Unfortunately, 18 to 24 girls face most of the violence, and mothers learn about domestic violence. So it's very similar, the topics that they learn. And then the last 5 topics, they get together. So the goal of this program is to improve communication between the family about topics that are very controversial, that shouldn't be, but they are. And how can we encourage the families to have this kind of communication about sexuality, which is very normal. From birth to death, we are sexual beings. But we don't want to speak about that especially, but the girls will find a way how to learn about sexuality in the internet, and probably the information that they gather from the internet, it won't be the best information. So having this information within the family is something that we do in the Mujeres de Maiz, and so yeah, it's something that we do with the Mujeres de Maiz because it has proved when we have this conversation with our families, with our kids, the chances that they're gonna involve in risky behavior, it will be less. They will be think twice, and unwanted pregnancy will be decreased, and STDs will be decreased too. And that's why we provide this kind of service. And also they learn about communication, about self-image, about self-acceptance, about the beauty standards that are not real, that most of the times are presented on the social media. The girls needs to be skinny, and needs to be certain type of beauty standard in order to fit. So this is the other program that we provide. Let me see. Also, we have Mi Carrera and Mi Vida. So Mi Vida program is a core focus on learning about emotional intelligence, naming emotion, reaction, trauma, PTSD, and access to self-regulation and self-care when the nervous system is activated. Understanding emotional intelligence is part of exploring how to support ourselves when experiencing reaction and trauma responses. Curriculum goals are to be more connected to who we are, honor the experiences we have been through, and be able to be empathetic and assertive when setting boundaries. So Mi Carrera is focused on personal and professional advancement. So for women who are seeking to advance in their careers, so we, if they want, for example, to open their own business, we have the Women's Business Center. So we refer the women to there. Usually, the women that I work with, most of them, they want to open their own business. Why? Because they don't have a social security number. But they have a lot of talent and skills. And for example, some of them, they clean houses. They open their own business cleaning houses. Some of them, they are excellent cookers, so they sell food. Some of them, they provide babysitting, so they open their escuelita in their own houses. Some of them, they know how to do nails or eyelashes or whatever, and they open their own business too. So we need to see the way how to be around the systemic oppression, and if you know to do something with your hands, why not? So, so they open their own businesses, and then we have the divorce recovery. So the divorce recovery is a support group for women who are in the process of filing divorce or separation. This is a life-changing process and a stressful and painful situation. So each individual have their own unique experience. So for divorce processes, because we know that 1 in 2 marriages are gonna end in divorce, it's true, but for every situation is different. And we started this support group like a year ago. This program existed for more than 20 years in Tucson, but only in English. So they offered the opportunity for us to offer this program in Spanish. And so it's kind of been a success. We have more than 10 women every time that we offer this. So, but one of the main, so this program seek to reduce the stress, the emotional stress when you are going through divorce or separation, but most of the stress comes from the not having the resources, the legal resources. And doesn't matter how many times we offer, do yoga, go to walk, listen music, talk with your comadre, whatever, to decrease your stress. But if you don't have the resources that you need, the stress, the emotional stress and depression will be there. So we offer legal resources for them. We partner with the University of Arizona College of Law so they can be not represented in a court, but at least to have an advice how to enforce their own rights when they are filing the divorce process. So that is something that we do too. And then, okay. So I would like to play a video before 3 minutes video.
La violencia doméstica o cualquier otra forma de violencia de género es un problema de salud pública que afecta a 1 en cada 3 mujeres, a nuestras familias y a nuestras comunidades. Las promotoras Rompiendo Cadenas es un programa con 1 año de duración en español y este programa busca capacitar a mujeres que deseen convertirse en defensoras de otras mujeres que están pasando por esta situación. A las promotoras Rompiendo Cadenas provee capacitación en organización y liderazgo comunitario. Es un programa en el cual la comunidad aprende sobre sus derechos y también provee educación, prevención y sobre todo intervención de violencia doméstica.
Las estadísticas son alarmantes. 1 de cada 3 mujeres y 1 de cada 4 hombres son víctimas de alguna forma de violencia. Las personas afectadas por este problema de salud pública no saben que están en una relación de violencia. Tenemos una sociedad donde identifica la violencia con golpes y excluye los diferentes tipos de violencia que existen. La violencia doméstica es uno de los crímenes menos reportados, por lo tanto no tenemos datos específicos.
Lamentablemente, estas estadísticas no han ido en descenso, al contrario, estas estadísticas han aumentado y debido a la crisis del COVID-19 hay un alto índice de violencia en las sobrevivientes. La violencia doméstica puede afectar en muchos ámbitos de la persona. Esto puede incluir lo que es la salud mental y puede desencadenar en una depresión. Para la mujer inmigrante es más difícil salir de esta violencia debido a algunos factores como es la falta de inglés, un estatus migratorio, el hecho de que no tengan en este país personas que puedan ser como una red de apoyo. También puede ser lo que es la cultura o la religión.
¿A dónde vamos? En Promotoras tenemos bien definida nuestra visión hacia dónde queremos llegar. Queremos establecer espacios seguros para que la sobreviviente se sienta confiada y acompañada de salir de una difícil situación de violencia, denunciar y sobre todo obtener ayuda. Nuestra misión es principalmente establecer una cultura sana, con espacios seguros, donde la confianza y la empatía son un factor clave para crear un diálogo. Perdón, es difícil. En donde se la informa a la sobreviviente de las ayudas disponibles, de donde puede obtener tanto ayuda legal como psicológica o emocional. Y esto sin importar el estatus legal que tenga en este momento. Es nuestro deseo que sepan que tienen derechos y que sepan hacia dónde dirigirse. Algunos de los derechos que nosotros les informamos son:
tienes derecho a orden de protección para ti y tus hijos, la separación o el divorcio sin el consentimiento del cónyuge, la custodia de tus hijos y ayuda financiera. Si el abusador te acusa de algún delito, tienes derecho a un abogado. Tienes derecho a no contestar preguntas sin la presencia de un abogado. Tienes derecho a tu autodefensa.
Independientemente de tu estado de migración o ciudadanía, tienes acceso a varios recursos por medio de agencias gubernamentales o no gubernamentales, dándote asesoramiento a intérpretes, elaboración de planes de seguridad. También tienes opciones legales, especialmente para obtener tu estatus migratorio por medio de la visa U o visa VAWA.
Promotoras Rompiendo Cadenas reciben la capacitación Conozca sus derechos. Este es un curso práctico donde las participantes desarrollan y practican sus habilidades de liderazgo, aumentando su conciencia social sobre la violencia de género y los problemas que afectan a nuestra comunidad de inmigrantes.
Se ofrecen otros recursos como los talleres Mi Vida de Desarrollo Personal, Mi Carrera de Desarrollo Profesional, Inglés como Segundo Idioma, Mujeres y Niñas.
GD, Comadritas, Cómo recuperarte de un divorcio, a todo folclore de White Drive Expo.
Únete a la lucha en contra de la violencia de género.
Juntas podemos crear comunidades más sanas.
Porque yo sí te creo.
Infórmate, existe ayuda.
Quiero que sepas que no estás sola.
Tienes derecho a una vida libre de violencia.
Únete, juntas podemos.
So they are the promotoras. So how the promotoras started, so like I said at the beginning of my presentation, is how my own experience shaped the work that I do at the YWCA against, I am immigrant women. I was undocumented for more than 16 years. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and it has to be violence, the fact that I'm here, because of violence I receive a visa that is the VAWA, that is a Violence Against Women Act. So supposedly the immigration system has a little bit of they grant me this perdón, no más por ser sobrevivientes, so tuvieron compasión. So that's what I'm here. And I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for the people who push those kind of policies, because there's a lot of women who are going through that situation, and I think is one of the most horrible situations that I was going through, being undocumented and being survivor of domestic violence, because domestic violence is about power and control, and I was completely isolated. I was victim of violence almost every day, and the only thing that encouraged me to continue going was my two daughters. So like I needed like a source of inspiration and encouragement to exit the violence that I was going through, and to have the courage and to go to a community event like this one. And I remember an immigration lawyer, I was providing this kind of an event for people, and I raised my hand and I say, what you do when you have a deportation? And she said, nothing to do for you. And I heard those words many times, but I stayed there, and someone asked me, how can I help you? And I say, I know there's nothing to do for me because I had a previous deportation, but what do you do when you are facing so much violence in your own house, and sexual violence, physical violence, emotional violence, and all the forms of violence? And then I learned about VAWA, and that day changed my life. And I was able to overcome every barrier that I have, like multiple identities, being Mexican, undocumented, not English speaker, low income, homelessness, survival of domestic violence, divorce, single mother. It was a lot. It was a lot, but I started looking and trying to learn and studying English that I never learned. You can tell, but I tried many times, and I started working at the YWCA, and I has a volunteer, and then an open position was available, and I applied, and now I'm the program manager of the Latina Leadership Institute. But I noticed that many of the women who attend our programs are victims of domestic violence too. So 65% of them, 65% are victims of domestic violence. We do a lot of surveys to learn about how can we provide more support the same way that someone helped me in the past. And I wanted to do something. That's why we created this group of domestic violence. So we provide, it's over? Oh, okay. So we have the promotoras against domestic violence. So we provide 3 training in October domestic violence, and in January stalking, and in April sexual violence. And it's April, and it's Sexual Violence Awareness Month. So 1 in 5 women are victims of sexual violence. So just to mention this, and thank you. So we created the folklorico group has a way to heal. And we are talking about the cultura cura. So dancing is a space that we have at House of Neighborhood Services. So where women gather together to dance, and they're gonna perform in a little bit. And I'm so proud of them. I can see the colorful bows back there. And this group was formed like, I'm so proud of them. So thank you.
We have 10 minutes.
For Q&A.
We have 10 minutes for Q&A. So would someone have a question for any of our community makers here? Aren't these outstanding folks?
Yes.
Outstanding. Who would like to ask a question? And you can present it to one, or you can just do it in general.
It's just social media question for contacting.
Yeah, so my social media on Instagram and Facebook is Caitlin Kramer. It's just my name. And then for my title holder page, it's Miss Sierra Vista AZ. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Okay, we have one over here.
Hi, I just want to ask the same question for the rest of the panelists. What is the best way for us to get in contact with you, whether it's an email or social media? And then I wanted to ask for, I think it's Darlene. What is your participation in the community with like high schools? Is that something you ever go and talk to the youth about to provide opportunities?
Good question. Go ahead. I don't think it's on.
Okay, now it's on. Okay, so my work with Scholarships AC as a student support fellow, we have 2 programs for high school students, and we often do like high school blitzes, and one of them is called UYI, and this program is open for high school and college students, and in this program we do a series of workshops every month, and you can join if you live in Arizona and you're undocumented, no matter the age. And we do workshops like undocumented clubs, we do how to build a resume, what's an I-10, kind of like that. And then we do ISH, and it's the Immigrant Scholarship Hustle, and that's for high school students and like freshmen in college. And this is just to get you prepared to write like a really good personal statement for a scholarship that you're able to get. Those are the 2 programs with Scholarships AZ.
Any other questions?
So going back to what you were just saying, I know that they asked, how do we get that information? Because I'll be actually working in a high school coming this year, working with seniors, freshmen, sophomores. So yeah, so I would love to be better equipped. So I definitely need your information so I could be better prepared to support the kids that I'll be working with this coming academic school year.
Sorry, I didn't put my email up there and I forgot my business cards. But my email is jorleneperalta@scholarshipsac.org. And I'll be here to connect if anyone wants to connect. And I can get those students into the programs.
I think we might have time for one more question. I'm gonna get really good muscles in my legs.
Hi, you guys all did really lovely presentations. My question is about like intersectionality, since that is super important for progressing any social justice movements. So my question is, are you guys involved in any other groups that maybe aren't pertaining particularly to the issues you're focused on? And if you are, has that been helpful in spreading awareness about your particular groups and movements? Thank you.
So thank you so much for your question. So some of the things that I've done in the past, I worked when I lived in Douglas at the House of Hope, which is a domestic violence shelter. So that was a big thing that I like to do, is advocate for domestic violence awareness. And something that I really enjoyed doing was going to the local domestic violence shelter and speaking to the women and children who were there, and doing crafts with the children. And I started doing that at around 6 years old, actually. And it was really impactful for me because I actually ended up seeing that one of my classmates was at the shelter. So seeing that and making that connection just made me want to advocate for that. So hearing her work, just helping women who are facing violence is so important, as well as your guys's as well. So I think everything just kind of connects within one another. And so it's awesome to hear everything that we're doing, because it all kind of connects. So.
I have one quick question for Agustin. Agustin, what is your next photography project?
My next photography project is going to be the residential schools. It's going to be a look into all the residential schools here in Arizona, also document survivors. So I'm going to try to make a piece where I can show the humanity and just the work and the issues that happened during that time. Also, going back with organizations, I actually work on my own. Everything I've done, I financed on my own. I'm trying to get involved with other groups, but me being in a male role, it's hard for me to get into these groups because a lot of these issues deal with women. So acceptance is pretty hard to get into, but that's the reason why I do this, is because I put myself out there. And if you guys want me to speak for you or anything regarding these issues, I'm willing to open up and do it for any organization here in Arizona or anywhere. My email is aflopez@arizona.edu, and I can give you my phone number. It's 520-272-5025. Give me a call, send me an email. I'm willing to speak. If you want to see the full presentation on what I just talked about, it's on the Arizona State Museum website. I did a presentation for them, and they archived those 4 photos that I created. So it's now in the History Museum here at the University of Arizona.
Okay, I think we're good. We're going to go ahead and close this panel. I hope everyone learned a lot about community making in our Tucson area, and I think that these folks are just absolutely fantastic. Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again, panelists. And before we break for lunch, we have one more active learning activity to do. So everybody take out your phones. Take out your phone, right? The ubiquitous iPhone. Once you have your phone out, look for this little piece of paper that's in your program or on the table. Okay? Take your phone and put it on the QR code. I promise you, we won't rob you. Okay? Just put it on there. I just want you to know the steps that you can take to support our students, our disciplines, our program. Because you can go here on the QR code and make a donation. 100% goes to our scholarships. You can also buy one of our lovely t-shirts, which are also fundraisers for scholarships. Everything goes to student scholarships. $25 general public, $20 for the students. You can get them out there. You can pay for them with a credit card through this QR code or in cash out there at the table. So I've given you a couple of little activities you can do during the lunch break. And thank you so much for being here and for your support and mostly your love. Thank you.
Are we ready for some nourishment? Yes? Okay. So we're going to break for lunch, and we'll also have our performances taking place. I'm not quite sure if it's inside or outside, but I think the food is going to be here where the, oh, okay, so the performances are outside. And the food as well. Okay, excellent. So the performances are from Atolo Folklore and the Neftis. So we will break until 12:50, and then we'll come back for 2 more excellent panels. Thank you so much. Buen provecho.